And then dealing with scummy corporate lawyers, they're always trying to do procedural tricks. You can't trust them on anything. They'll lie to you repeatedly, mislead you, try to trap you, try to get you to waive something or forfeit something that you didn't realize that that's what was happening. You have to always assume they're acting in bad faith.
Tell it, Barnes.
You can never assume they're acting in good faith. You have to operate on a constant, persistent, paranoid perspective of how might they be trying to screw me here? How might they be trying to disadvantage me? What edge are they trying to gain tactically by what they're doing? And sadly, that's who they are. That's the reason why most sort of conscientious lawyers who work in litigation quit within a decade.
As I'm listening to this, I'm listening to Robert Barnes this morning. This is his Bourbon with Barnes from last night. I'm like, this is how I felt. He's describing how I feel. I'm like, me. Conscientious lawyer. I lasted a little bit longer than 10 years. And then the punchline.
Disproportionately women, interestingly.
Well, that's not the punchline.
The constant dishonesty, the constant sleaziness, scumminess of how they behave is something that most ordinary people can't handle. It's part of why lawyers have bad reputations.
They deserve them.
Most lawyers are sleazy human beings. Not all, obviously, but most are. I mean, you've seen, to give you an example of lawyers who would rather quit the practice of law.
Had no idea he was going here.
Viva. Viva quit the practice of law because of this. Probably 80% of it was this. 20% of it was probably dealing with difficult clients.
Tell it, Barnes.
80% of it was dealing with opposing lawyers always up to something sleazy and scummy. And judges who don't follow the rule of law like they pretend they do. And try to threaten you as an individual lawyer with it. And you have to figure out in advance, okay, if I'm going to challenge this judge, where might the judge counterattack? Where might the other party counterattack? Make sure you're as immune as possible in all those areas.
I didn't know Barnes was going there. I was like, oh my goodness, he's describing my experience. And yeah, you imagine living with the constant fear that you are always potentially being exploited by opposing counsel who is continuously looking to exploit you. There's no good faith anything. It's all exploitive. It's all cutthroat. It's all the ends justify the means. And they can say, well, I'm just doing it to represent my client. Oh my goodness, No, I won't start swearing just yet. The crap that I saw and the crap that I had to put up with. And then you get in front of a judge and a judge doesn't give a sweet bugger all about the infighting among counsel. And you live your life constantly fearing getting screwed because the opposing counsel is constantly trying to screw you. Not about justice, it's about victory. And it taints the way you view the world. When I left the practice of law, I mean, it was after like 12 or 13 years, entirely. I was like, how do people have successful businesses? How do people actually succeed in business? How do they trust their business partners? All that I had seen, you imagine like all you do is family law and marital law and all you deal with is divorce. You're like, how do people actually stay married successfully? Now, I had answers to these questions. But Robert, somebody said, you had me at Prostitutes. I think that talks about a tweet that I made. So it was an interesting, I'm listening to Barnes, I'm like, yep, my goodness. Apropos, and we're going to talk about this today. Apropos also because if you guys don't know who Ian Corzine is, we're going to like reminisce for a bit because I met Ian, I'm like going back, I think it's been like close to 5 years. And I see him nodding in the back. It's like 5 years. And we, at some point in time, lawyers who loathe lawyers become friends, whether it's just by the internet or by happenstance, because I say awfulness congregates and goodness also congregates. And so I met Ian years ago. I think everybody should know who he is. Smart guy, good guy, above all else. Now I'm just looking at some of the chat here. Okay, so what's going to happen today? Ian's coming on. He's not going to stay for the whole show. He's going to stay for what he can. I think he's got a busy schedule. Staken. And then we're going to talk about everything. Trump gag orders, Jenna Ellis fundraiser. Barnes talked about that last night. I got some ADL stuff, both relating to the gag orders and a new law that they are contesting in Tennessee, aggravated prostitution. Speaking of prostitutes. Okay, we'll get to it. Ian, I'm bringing you in 3 to an Ian Corzine, everybody. Say hello to the guest of the hour,
hey,
sir.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you again, Viva.
Dude, how long has it been? How long have we known each other for?
5 years. You and I both had an idealistic notion to go online and be able to use or to give our services to help people understand the law. And it's been a great 5-year run. I know it's been great for you too.
It has been, well, okay, the exponential growth as of COVID, I'm not calling it a silver lining because I would rather be, grinding it out to do, not the family law, I had done the vlog stuff. I'd rather be grinding it out just with regular law stuff than the decay of the Western world. But we did not meet through the No Small Creators movement. That was, oh geez, Louise, I'm going to get his.
Cody Warner.
Cody Warner.
Yeah.
So is that where we met, through the hashtag No Small Creators?
I think part of it was that. Then we had a mutual friend, Micah, from Arkansas.
Yep.
We were struggling creators. That was back in 2018, 2019. We're trying to figure it out. Short form content basically didn't exist. All these live streams and the popularity thereof wasn't there yet. So we were just trying to get out there and express ourselves and help people with the law.
Now, for those who don't know, Ian, what type of law? Where are you from? How old are you? And where are you? You're in California.
Well, right now I'm in Scottsdale. I kind of go back and forth between California and Arizona. 51 years old. I have a whole life of practice. Was a federal prosecutor for a period of time, was a federal law clerk. Then for about 20 years had my own law firm and practiced civil law, business, and insurance litigation. So when Barnes was talking about wanting to quit the profession and how many lawyers want to do that, I felt the exact same thing you felt, which was I wanted to get the heck out of it because it was a very difficult lifestyle. Like you said, maintaining relationships, keeping positive about the world was very difficult.
Well, people always say like lawyers make a lot of money and yada yada. First of all, it's not all lawyers that make a lot of money, and some of it is a hard grind. But I said even those that make a lot of money, they spend a lot of money as well. It's known as the golden handcuffs for a reason, and I called it the unhappiness tax. They spent the lawyers that made money would spend it because they say, I work so hard, I'm miserable, I want a Porsche because that'll make me happy, I want fancy vacations, and then they spend it as fast as they make it.
But eventually you learn that hourly rates are not where it's at. Obviously, entrepreneurialism and business is probably more smart for us. So I'm so glad to be in the online atmosphere. I have my own company now, and I'm happy to be on the show today. So
you said federal prosecutor for how many years?
For about 2 years, I was what's called a special assistant U.S. attorney. I was tasked with prosecuting misdemeanors on federal land. So I did it during law school, a little bit thereafter, and then I was drafted to be a federal law clerk for a magistrate judge in Sacramento, California.
Very cool. And I'm just flagging a question that someone's going to have. I'll get to it in a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you went into private practice, and you're doing corporate. You were not doing litigation, right?
I was doing litigation, yes. I was right in the thick of it. And like I said before, it was difficult. You really want to do the best for your client. You really want to have those idealistic morals you start out with, but it does get to be a grind. When you have a big case and you're on the plaintiff side and it's a contingency fee, you sometimes you're like, oh, wow, they really got injured. This is going to be a good one. And you feel yourself going to that weird place, which I didn't like.
And then when did you decide to wind it down, and what did you get into, and what are you doing now?
So I decided to wind it down around 2018 or so. My daughter was into YouTube, and I saw that a lot of creators out there, YouTube creators, needed legal help. And so I started making videos about how to succeed online and not violate laws and how to negotiate brand deals and things like that, and did pretty well for a period of time. And then I realized I wanted to reach out and kind of broaden my audience. I got a company called The People's Choice. We're in California. We do legal document production. And so I wanted to kind of expand the audience and expose people to my business.
Now, hold on. I want to pull up the tweet because I like what you're doing on Twitter. Where's the tweet where the legal take with the finger? And I retweeted it. And I said, we're going to talk about it today.
Thank you.
Where the heck is it? Oh, I'll find it in a
I could
second.
find it, but...
Yeah, no, I'll do... Oh, no, here. Well, hold on. I'm just going to show your entire profile.
Okay, great.
And so now... you okay, and now you're doing your online commentary type stuff, and also a more business side of it.
Yeah, what I'm really trying to do is the brand name is Lawyer's Take, and really what that is kind of shooting from the hip with my legal experience, giving you my true and honest opinion relating to political and trending issues. So what I've kind of done is I've said, listen, I did some analysis and figured out that multi-platform is the best. So I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, and then now X. When Elon took it over, I thought it was a good opportunity to get videos on Twitter, on the X platform. So what I do is I label everything lawyers take, and you can take it or you can leave it. You can look at I do research before I do my tweets. And give you my honest belief, and sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes I'm not.
Now, Ian, I've known you for 5 years, and I've seen what I think is your evolution on the interwebs. Have you gotten, I won't say black-pilled, but have you gotten more red-pilled over the last 5 years? Because it seems now you're more opinionated than you used to be 5 years ago.
Well, you're exactly right. And I remember that tweet that you sent me a couple of months ago or so.
Yes.
Said, you got the red pill. You know what? I've always been conservative. I think I would say I'm socially liberal, but I've always been conservative. I've worked for Republican candidates. I worked for the governor of California for a period of time. So that's always been the case. But, recently I came to the conclusion, after so much damage was done to our country, that I needed to get my voice out there. And like I said, it's not always going to be an agreeable voice. But someone needs to speak up, because what's happening is a disaster to this country, and I want to make sure that I'm doing something to try to help out.
Well, I forget what it was where I said, yeah, Ian has taken the red pill, but the last legal take. I mean, the news of the week, and we're going to get into all of I say trending, but they're not trending, just like the issues of the week. Yeah. So the plea deals that are going on in the Trump indictment. Now, so you have. Look, you're in Scottsdale. I think Robert Gouveia is not far from you, at least in Arizona.
And I know you visited him recently.
Yeah, I showed up where I might not have been supposed to show. Not supposed to show. I showed up to surprise. So, I mean, look, I don't necessarily just defer to other people's opinions, but I recognize when they have more experience than I do. Yeah. You're looking, Robert, and he might come on later this week. Oh, good. He's looking at these, the basically deferred agreements, I would say deferred prosecution agreements, but I don't think that's the right word. And he's a little bit more optimistic than I am about the impact of these guilty pleas. Mm-hmm. He's highlighting that these guilty pleas, they get basically expunged or washed, for lack of a better word, if they comply with all the terms for 3 or 4 years or the 5 years of probation. But what is your take on all of these Trump defendants, or I'll lump them as Trump defendants, who are now pleading one after the other? Sidney Powell, Cheesebro, Jenna Ellis. I think there's a fourth one in there, but I'm not sure. What is your take on what's going on?
Well, first off, it's disappointing, but as my time in being a federal prosecutor and a law clerk, it's not surprising. The government comes in, and I used to be representing the United States of America, comes in, and oftentimes they bully these people, and it's very difficult, especially when we're on the record, so to speak, these days, where we can look at Jenna Ellis's tweets and we can see her interviews, and we can go, my God, what a marked difference. And then at the same time, you see what we saw yesterday, and she was on camera and on a Zoom call from the courthouse, giving a statement that if you watch the whole tape, you see the judge said, you don't have to do this. And she was like, I want to do this. So you kind of begin to understand there's other motives going on besides just being scared that you're going to get 10 years in prison. And then you kind of do some research into the background of some of these people, and you realize, golly, this is not what they're not really communicating what's exactly happening. My expertise is actually in civil law. I spent most of my time there. So I did a tweet or a post, an X post yesterday, talking about the civil complications that may ensue when you're admitting on the record you're pleading guilty to, in this case, aiding and abetting false documentation. False statements. And so we talked about the fact that, this is opening them up to potential, defamation per se, to negligent misrepresentation causes of action later on in time, where they could be sued by election officials. I wanted to make sure that there's more consequences, just what we see.
Oh, we're gonna get to that side of it in a second, but you did actually say something that was quite interesting, and now I'm piecing two and two together. The entire hearing was 23 some odd minutes, and you're right. At one point, she says, "I'd like to read a statement," and the judge says, "Are you sure? Do you want to?" And it's like, yes. And the lawyer says, "I want to submit a written document, which is the statement to be read." Yeah. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't required. Was that and I'm not being judgmental for the sake of being judgmental. Yeah. Was that done so that because apparently whatever agreement they had, the court was not bound by? So is she groveling to some extent to the court, so the court ratifies the agreement that they entered into with the prosecution?
It's so hard to tell because as well as I, having been in court, that submission of a written statement is just is fine. Matter of fact, the judges sometimes appreciate it because they can do it on their non-court time and review it. So that's interesting, I guess. But I was looking at some posts today, and they're suggesting that she just wanted to be on the networks, and I don't know if that's true. But I got to tell you, it wasn't necessary. She had it in writing. She submitted it to the judge, or the lawyer submitted to the judge, and then she still went on. And then we have a lot of emotion going on. So it was a very, very odd thing to do. I think at the same time, she threw people under the bus. She potentially implicated herself in civil lawsuits. So maybe she values the public exposure over all those other dangers.
The hypothesis that this might be a long-term investigation, a long-term investment into a senior analyst, legal commentator on CNN, MSNBC, whatever, we'll see. That'll play out. But it's not controversial that she threw Giuliani under the bus hard with that statement.
She did. She did, absolutely. I've reviewed the indictment again in preparation for our discussion today, and it's very clear that certainly Giuliani was part of it, and she was taking some orders from him, but she was also a major instigator, at least as alleged by the pleadings, and we have to kind of affirm them as true based upon a guilty plea. So yeah, it was a weird thing to do. I mean, I don't know what the value was. If she could have just exercised that same statement and nothing, it would have been so much better. But now she's saying, she holds herself out as a constitutional lawyer, never been in federal court before. And then she says that, she's acting under the direction. When you see her interviews, her tweets, you see the allegations in the indictment, it's a little confusing.
Let me see here. I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, the whole point of the public apology is for it to be public. These are communist tactics. Well, yes, but then that assumes that Jenna Ellis is submitting to the communist tactic of the public apology. I don't know if struggle session is the right word. Oh, and by the way, everybody, I forgot to mention, hit the thumbs up button because I want to see this rise to the front page of Rumble. So the thumbs up and a comment. But she threw Giuliani under the bus hard. I mean, basically saying, I trusted them in what they were doing. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that's going to be much of a defense potentially from other potential claims. She wasn't named as the defendant or a defendant in the defamation lawsuits of Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Dominion. I guess she didn't repeat the statements that much, but felt the need to say it here.
I guess, but that's a violation of her professional responsibility. You can't go and mount this multi-state litigation on behalf of the President of the United States without verifying things. It just, if you put all the facts together, you spend some time with her history, it kind of reeks.
Yeah, but Barnes is actually sort of on the similar bandwagon, or the similar opinion that they were out of their league or out of their expertise at the least. I just didn't think that she made any overtly, gratuitously false statements, unlike Sidney Powell and Giuliani. But
I'm looking at tweets right here. President Trump should never concede the election. The video evidence being shown in the Georgia Senate hearing is shocking.
You could share that with me in the private chat. I can bring it up. But if there's any you want me to, it's interesting. So now Gouvea's take, and I say not take, but Gouvea's explanation is that these guilty pleas, they are basically, I don't know if expunged is the right word after several years if they comply with this, so they're not actual guilty convictions. So flesh that out and then tell us what the practical impact of that is if, for the time being, they've now gotten 3 or 4 lawyers to plead guilty to wrongdoing, not in the RICO context, but in the broader context, which will have an impact nonetheless, if on nothing else, public opinion.
Well, I used to use this strategy as a prosecutor. I mean, really what you're trying to do on these people, they don't care about these people. I mean, the prosecution. They're just trying to get them to roll over on President Trump and other high-profile people. That's the goal. So that's the whole point of these pleas. You look at what she actually pled guilty to. I don't think she's even alleged to have made false statements in writing in the indictment. Certainly, she's alleged to conspire. But she pled to a charge that's different than she was charged with in the indictment. So it's clearly a situation where, they just want to be able to get the whole posse together, get as much bad stuff against Donald Trump, and then use it at trial.
Now, do you think one of the explanations was that the prosecution was not ready to go to trial? They had asked for a speedy trial, and this was them, the defendants, jostling or jockeying, I should say, for a better plea deal. Was it the prosecution not ready to go to trial, or do they really just not care about these defendants? They slapped on a bunch of crazy charges so they could substitute them for the lesser charges to which they pleaded, so that they can then use these guilty pleas as some sort of influence or momentum for the bigger fish, Trump and others.
Yes. You know as well as I do, before you bring a case on the criminal or the civil side, your case is done. I mean, you're prepared. You got the evidence lined up. I firmly believe this is a situation where they needed more time, the prosecutors, and they don't have their evidence together, and they're trying to get as much evidence as they can from these witnesses. So I think to be honest, I think it's a delay tactic. That was my initial impression. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Now, what we're going to do, Ian, let me see. That's the link to Rumble. We're going to end this on YouTube now.
Okay.
And then we're going to get over to Rumble. Doesn't change anything on our end, but and you're going to tell us whether or not you think Jenna Ellis has opened herself up to a civil suit, potentially for fraud, for the fundraising. And we'll do that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on